Thank you for joining NMH at 1, where we highlight the news making headlines in the land of the brave and beyond, ranging from current affairs to community stories, sports and economic news. I am Ashwin Berry, and these are the headlines. Feasibility assessment for veterinary barrier on Namibia-Angola border to launch this financial year. Namibia's national teams continue to play on international grounds due to unfit stadiums. And Kenya finds new strains of sexually transmitted diseases. This is NMH at 1. Heading into the midday news update, aid agency Médecins Sans Frontières says far more humanitarian assistance is urgently needed in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. MSF says about 1 million people have been forced to flee their homes in North Kivu province over the last year as a result of violent clashes linked to the M23 rebel group. The medical charity says most of the displaced are living in appalling conditions and its teams are completely overwhelmed with increasing cases of measles and cholera. Several East African countries have deployed troops to eastern Congo in an effort to get the M23 rebels to withdraw. DR Congo has accused the neighboring Rwanda of supporting the rebel group, a claim Kigali continues to deny. Now remember to engage with these stories on our social media throughout the broadcast. Visual news coming up after the break.
Tourismus Namibia is a weekly tourism show that brings you the latest news in the tourism industry and topics related to that. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact tourismus@synergy.com.na for news and advertising related queries. Tourismus, bring the world to Namibia.
Heading into the visual news, Sanlam Namibia last week donated 102 pairs of shoes valued at 13,488 Namibian dollars. Speaking at the handover, Lucas Chichidmona, the manager at Ondangwa and Enana branches, said that school shoes are a necessity as it will help boost the learners' self-confidence. Now, Chichidmona added that the donation is part of their corporate social responsibility. Enzo Amwele attended the event.
Of less privileged learners going to school without shoes in the northern Namibia. Sanlam is today donating school shoes to address this critical need for adequate footwear. This donation will positively impact the lives of many learners who were previously unable to pursue their education comfortably. As a part of our corporate social responsibilities, Sanlam is providing a total of 102 pairs of shoes to the beneficiary of Oshikunde Combined School in Oangwena region. While shoes alone won't solve their everyday problems, we can all agree that the school shoes provided here today will assist the learners to establish self-esteem and give them hope. In addition, as many children walk barefoot to school, these shoes will safeguard their feet from infections and injuries. I thank you very much.
The Agriculture Ministry intends to launch a feasibility assessment for the establishment of a veterinary barrier on the Namibia-Angola border this financial year. An update on this story follows in the newspaper review segment.
My.NA Property Show provides viewers with the best in-class content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest property-related products and services. If you would like to feature your brand or your campaign on this platform, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na My.NA Properties, more than just a roof over your head.
Heading into the newspaper review, the Agriculture Ministry intends to launch a feasibility assessment for the establishment of the veterinary barrier on the Namibia-Angola border this financial year. This is to effectively prevent the introduction of foot and mouth disease and contagious bovine pneumonia into the northern communal areas. Now, Namibians north of the veterinary cordon fence, whose meat is not allowed to cross southwards, have for long proposed that the fence be moved to the borders with Angola instead. More than 1.1 million cattle were vaccinated against CBPP, and over 500,000 cattle were vaccinated against FMD in the northern communal areas during the 2022-23 financial year. Now, this is due to the ministry's rapid response to various outbreaks of livestock diseases. Deputy Minister of Labour, Industrial Relations and Employment Creation, Hafeni Ndemula, says his ministry is not to blame for the country's lack of employment, adding that the accusation was opportunistic. I note that some of our opposition politicians and social activists have found it politically opportune to blame my ministry for not creating jobs. This reflects a basic lack of understanding of what is required to create employment and a misunderstanding of the ministry's mandate, he said during his parliamentary budget motivation. This is according to Namibian Sun. Now, Republican zooms in on the state of football stadiums and sporting facilities in its lead story. The Brave Warriors of Namibia's recent performance in the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers has once again brought to the fore the bitter issue of national teams playing on international grounds, as there is no stadium fit to host football games in the country. For the last 2 years, the Namibian national teams, including the Warriors, have used South Africa as their home ground for international matches after the Confederation of Africa Football ruled the Sam Nujoma Stadium unfit due to safety concerns over structural defects. It is not clear how much the Namibia Football Association is forking out to play in South Africa, but some in football circles say it could be millions. Now, Deputy Fisheries Minister Sylvia Mahone has raised concerns over a supposed lack of planning for housing and servicing of land in Luderitz in light of the much-touted green hydrogen project and the oil funds off the coast of Namibia. She told Parliament last week that government cannot wait any longer to sort this out, as the town is already flooded by people while schools are bursting at the seams due to an influx of residents seeking opportunities. Now, according to Allgemeine Zeitung, upgrades and renovations at Sam Nujoma and independent stadiums will apparently not happen in the near future. The Windhoek municipality, which is awaiting technical recommendations, needs more money than was expected. The Enana Sports Complex is first in line. And more money for Ministry of Agriculture, reads the paper's page 3 headline, as it is reported that Namibia's Ministry of Agriculture will receive a significantly higher budget in the new fiscal year than before, an important part of this land reform. Stay with us as we continue with the newspaper review, starting with the Namibian after the break.
The Regional Review brings you news, views, and interviews from NMH correspondents from across the country. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact regional@synergy.com.na.
Continuing with the newspaper review, the Namibian newspaper reports on the appointment of Zimbabwean Judge Rita Makarau to Namibia's highest court, which has raised concerns among local opposition parties over her links to former Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe's controversial regime. The Independent Patriots of Change, Popular Democratic Movement, and Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters are among the parties speaking out against Makarau's Supreme Court appointment. In a separate story, the paper reports that Auditor General Junius Kanjeke has detained a shocking array of irregularities and governance issues in the government's food bank program, where over $143.5 million Namibian dollars was spent since 2018. Etosha Fishing, Namibia's only pilchard canning company, has notified the Labour Commissioner's office of its intention to end the contracts of more than 480 workers. Now, this comes as the company plans to shut down operations after facing a moratorium on pilchard fisheries since 2018. New Era reports that teachers and leaders in the Kunene region are concerned about high teenage pregnancies at the hands of family members in the region. In Namibia, sexual contact with girls under the age of 16 constitutes statutory rape. In 2022, the Education Directorate in Kunene region recorded 232 pregnancies among high school-going girls. Now on the paper's page 3, it is reported that the Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources has urged residents of the Ohangwena region not to eat fish from floodplains as it is suspected to be contaminated with a disease. Chief Fisheries Biologist Elizabeth Ndivayele said that there might be an outbreak of epizootic ulcerative syndrome, which is a fungal infection that affects fish. Now, Market Watch reports that major oil powers led by Saudi Arabia announced a surprise production cut of more than 1 million barrels per day on Sunday, calling it a precautionary move aimed at stabilizing the market. The reductions on top of a Russian decision to extend a cut of 500,000 barrels per day, and despite U.S. calls to increase production, risk stoking inflation and pressure to raise interest rates. Now, Namibia is exploring for oil and gas in the country's waters in order to rely on its own domestic energy supply as it readies to become an oil-producing nation. More on this story in Economic News shortly.
Straight Talk is a debate competition for high school learners and a spelling competition for primary school learners, mostly focusing on current affairs among the youth. Contact Zone at synergy.com.na to share your products and services. Straight Talk. Don't raise your voice, improve your argument.
Heading into economic news, Namibia is exploring for oil and gas in the country's waters in order to rely on its own domestic energy supply as it readies to become an oil-producing nation. Now, this is according to Deputy Mines and Energy Minister Cornelia Shulingwa, who said plans to finalize a new development plan for the Kudu gas field are underway, as well as efforts to ensure Namibia is prepared to participate meaningfully in this new industry. This announcement comes at a time when more than satisfactory deposits of oil were found off the coast of Namibia by Shell, Total Energies and Qatar, with the National Petroleum Corporation of Namibia acting as the country's petroleum entity. Now, at the moment and for the next 6 to 8 months, the ministry, together with joint ventures, will be drilling up to 4 wells in the Orange River Basin to appraise these discoveries and establish commerciality, she said. The Mines Ministry has requested a budget of 250 million Namibian dollars, of which 23 million is allocated to investments for explorations in efforts to regulate the industry, attract investors, and capacitate small-scale miners. Now, further, the ministry has set aside 79 million Namibian dollars for energy supply security to help buffer Namibians from volatility in prices in National Energy Fund subsidies, energy prices, and levies imposed on petroleum and electricity. Let's head into the economic indicators. The local currency rose by 0.2% against the Chinese yuan, while $1 will now cost 17 Namibian dollars and 87 cents. Capricorn Investment Group stocks still valued at 13 Namibian dollars and 83 cents on the NSX as stock prices remain unchanged. Now, local index remains unchanged as well, while overall index closed 0.94% higher. Looking at commodities, copper and zinc prices have dropped by 0.85% and 0.82% respectively, while other commodities rose in price. Kenya will launch its first operational satellite next week in a landmark achievement for the country's space program. This story and more from the African continent coming up shortly.
3, 2, 1.
We Talk brings you community news that lies at the heart of Windhoek residents. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact wetalk@synergy.com.na. You live, we talk.
Heading into news stemming from the African continent, Kenya will launch its first operational satellite next week in a landmark achievement for the country's space program, the government said on Monday. Taifa 1, or Nation 1 in Swahili, is scheduled to be launched on 10 April aboard the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The mission is an important milestone, the Defense Ministry and Kenya Space Agency said in a joint statement, adding that it would contribute significantly to the country's budding space economy. The observation satellite is fully designed and developed by Kenyan engineers and will be used to provide data on agriculture and food security, among other areas, the statement said. The satellite launch will add to a push by African nations for scientific innovation and the development of space programs. Egypt was the first African country to send a satellite into space in 1998. In 2018, Kenya launched its first experimental nano-satellite from the International Space Station. Now staying with Kenya, Kenyan researchers have found 2 new strains from 2 common sexually transmitted diseases among a group of women in a town in western Kenya. More than 400 women above the age of 15 were diagnosed with gonorrhea and chlamydia with new mutations. The researchers from the Kenya Medical Research Institute fear that the disease could spread to neighboring Uganda, and the town Busia is along the border where truck drivers stop. This group of people are at an increased risk of getting HIV and sexually transmitted diseases. Now, the researchers are planning to conduct more studies to establish how widespread the disease is and whether the new mutations can be treated by standard antibiotics. They say the changes on the genetic makeup of the virus had not been seen before. We'll be heading into international news shortly.
Sport Wrap is a daily show focusing on all sport news and current affairs. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact sportwrap@synergy.com.na.
In this afternoon's international news, the trial of a 69-year-old Lebanese Canadian charged over a fatal 1980 bomb attack outside a Paris synagogue opened on Monday after more than 4 decades of legal wrangling. Now, Canada-based Hassan Diab, who denies any involvement in the attack, which killed 4 and wounded dozens, told the court during preliminary hearings that he would not show up for the trial after accusations against him had been dropped in an earlier investigation. In the early evening of October 3, 1980, explosives placed on a motorcycle detonated close to a synagogue in Rue Copernic in Paris' chic 16th district, killing 4 people: a student passing by on a motorbike, a driver, an Israeli journalist, and a caretaker. 46 people were injured in the blast. The bombing was the first deadly attack against a Jewish target on French soil since World War II. French intelligence in 1999 accused Diab, a sociology professor, of having made the 10-kilogram bomb. In 2014, Canada extradited Diab at the request of the French authorities. However, investigating judges were unable to prove his guilt conclusively during the investigation, and Diab was released, leaving France for Canada a free man in 2018. We'll be heading into local sports shortly, starting with Tura Magic.
Namibia's hospitality is as vibrant as its people. Join the What's Cooking team as they travel the country cooking, chatting, and celebrating local personalities and the joy of food. If you think you have a standout offering, whether it's a restaurant, bar, pop-up event, or braai stand, get in touch with the What's Cooking team at cooking@synergy.com.na, and we will be there to show the world what's cooking. Programs air every Friday at 4 p.m. on all the NMH Facebook platforms, as well as on NTV, DSTV channel 285, and GoTV channel 94 at 9 p.m.
Let's get into the local sport on NMH at 1. Tura Magic head coach Shama Gure is happy with his side's performance at the FNB Women Super League over the weekend as round 12 and 13 games concluded. On Saturday, the team beat Namib Daughters 6-0 and went on to defeat Arrows Ladies 4-0. The defending champions coach said their approach remains the same. As defending champions, it doesn't get any easier for us. Every opponent we face has proven a nightmare, and I've played with a renewed sense of urgency and energy, Gure added. The David Namwandi Trust officially launched its sports project, the David Namwandi Trust Annual Marathon for 2023 at the International University of Management yesterday. The marathon is not an IUM marathon, but an annual DNT sports project. It is a two-level marathon, 21 kilometers for IUM alumni, colleges and university students, and 10 kilometers for learners aged 15 to 19. Interested persons can enter via ium.edu.na. Learners and those without internet access are advised to register at their respective schools. Afrocat Lions netball team manager Dimitri Bitler has expressed gratitude towards his team for a good start to the MTC Namibia Netball Premier League. The team from Katutura has started the season well and are fourth after 4 matches. This past weekend, the team beat Fatu Netball Club 58-32 and Northern Fly Ballers 48-30 at Walvish Bay. The team is performing beyond expectations, and we are happy with that. We only have 1 defeat so far, which was also very narrow. I think the team is responding well to training, Bitler said. The Lions have won 3 of the 4 games they've played. They have already scored 187 goals while conceding only 133 goals. We head into the international sport shortly, starting off with news from UEFA.
Take a load off and tune into another episode of Brave Namibia as we take a look at both ordinary and extraordinary Namibians. Brave Namibia is broadcasted on NTV Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and 1up2.com, as well as broadcasted on the following Facebook platforms on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Republican, Algemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and all Namibia Media Holdings pages. For more information, contact the Brave team at brave@synergy.com.na. Brave Namibia, for the ordinary and extraordinary Namibians.
Looking at international sport news, Alexander Chefrin stands unopposed for a new term as president of UEFA when European football's governing body meets in Lisbon on Wednesday. The 55-year-old Slovenian lawyer, elected in 2016 following the downfall of Frenchman Michel Platini, is therefore assured of a further 4 years in the role, despite a turbulent second term overshadowed by the breakaway European Super League project. The UEFA Congress in the Portuguese capital comes just a few weeks after Gianni Infantino was re-elected as president of FIFA, also unopposed. Now, Chefrin has had his differences with Infantino, with the UEFA chief notably one of the main voices against FIFA's proposals to host the World Cup every 2 years instead of the current 4. Peru became the second country in recent weeks to be stripped of the right to host a FIFA tournament after the governing body on Monday said the South American nation had failed to fulfill infrastructure commitments ahead of the Under-17 World Cup. FIFA said the Under-17 tournament is still set to take place from November 10 to December 2, adding that its council will designate a new host. Peru's northern region was struck by torrents of rain last month in the midst of Cyclone Yaku, leading to homes and cars being buried in mud and the deaths of at least 6 people. Moving over to rugby, in what could be a major setback to the South Sea Sharks' chances of advancing beyond the quarter-final stage of the Heineken Champions Cup, Ibn Etzbeth is believed to be highly unlikely to play in Saturday's sudden death playoff fixture against Toulouse. Etzbeth, who has become very much a talisman for the Sharks since moving to Durban from France, was unable to play the second half of this past weekend's highly impressive 50-35 win over Munster in the round of 16 Champions Cup clash. Director of Rugby Neil Powell said afterwards that Etzbeth's injury would be assessed and he would go for a scan. But it is understood the Sharks have resigned themselves to being without him for the quarter-final. If you're just joining us, this is NMH at 1, and we'll get into the highlights from today's broadcast after this short break.
Chill Sessions is an entertainment show that brings you the latest hit, fashion, and entertainment news. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact chill@synergy.com.na. Chill Sessions, bringing art and entertainment to the people. Sunset News is a daily news show focusing on national headlines as well as international news. If you'd like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, please contact sunset@synergy.com.na. Sunset News. Don't end your day without us.
Let's head into the highlights from this afternoon's broadcast of NMH at 1. Kenya will launch its first operational satellite next week in a landmark achievement for the country's space program, the government said yesterday. The trial of 69-year-old Lebanese Canadian charged over a fatal 1980 bomb attack outside a Paris synagogue opened on Monday after more than 4 decades of legal wrangling. Upgrades to the Sam Nujoma Stadium are nowhere close to starting as the city of Windhoek awaits engineering recommendations. Namibia's Brave Warriors' recent performance in the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers has once again brought to the fore the bitter issue of national teams playing on international grounds as there is no stadium fit to host football games in the country. Those have been your highlights, and that's been our broadcast. Remember to tune in every weekday at 1 p.m. to spend your lunch hour with NMH at 1, catching up on the latest news in Namibia, Africa, and the world, ranging from current affairs to economic news, sports, and international headlines. From us in studio, have a good day. See you tomorrow.